Hey there, I'm Rebecca with the Connext Exchange, and I am here to continue the conversation with Matt Reiniger. Matt is an associate partner at Fathom and recently joined us for a conversation called Triggering Your Innate Creativity. Thank you so much for joining us again, Matt. And creativity, this word, we've all heard it from, preschool with our crayons up through adulthood. And in the business sense, we hear about like, we need to be creative. We need creative thinking, that's valued. Or maybe as an adult, we feel like, oh, I'm not creative. I don't know how to do that. Or that there are only a certain bucket of people that are creative people. So it's interesting when you think about this word and what comes up with it, that it's maybe more than meets the eye or more than we think in our head. So just to start, I wonder, what is it about creativity for you, and why was this an important topic to bring to Connext?
Well, I think, first of all, creativity is something that I use every day professionally. And so I am curious from a R&D perspective about what is it that allows one to continue to come up with both novel and useful ideas or strategies or approaches, which is one definition of creativity, this creation of things that are both new and useful. And then there's the business of creativity, which is being paid for those things, that there's a value in the novelty and the newness of them. But as you said, there's so much that we do that we don't normally think of as being creative, and even beyond what's recognized as creative outputs that are ripe for creative disruption, and that we would be better for it. So that's really what I wanted to dig into and explore, and what I wanted to share was, not just some popular conceptions of creativity, but the neuroscience of creativity, what's going on in our brain, what is that really about, and to break it down into some things that people can recognize and take action on to trigger creativity in their everyday life.
Yeah, and I think you did such a beautiful job of really digging into creativity from all different angles. Before I hit record, I had said to you, it's kind of like you held it up as if creativity were a ball and was like, look at it at this angle, and now this angle, and now this angle, and really did a beautiful job too of highlighting that creativity is not off limits to anyone. It's for everyone. And I think you actually described it in your talk as a birthright, which is a really beautiful reminder for us to tap into that. So I wonder, from the conversation, is there anything in particular that stuck out to you most as people responded to this conversation?
Well, I mean, the thing that stuck out to me most about, the experience of having the conversation was just that even talking about these things already were going to work in people's minds. And some of the people in the conversation had said that, while we were talking, while I was presenting, things were coming to them, things were being triggered, and they were, furiously writing things down, just because these sort of things were at play. And that's what I think is so interesting about it, is that there's these barriers to creativity, or because we are so stuck in our routines, our mental routines, and these things that constantly just give us the same answers to what we need to do and how we need to do it. But those things are so easily disrupted if you just use some of the hacks, for lack of a better word, that we know you can do to trigger your brain's creative response and to make it work for you, rather than against you. We talked about the innate drive to recognize patterns that's in the brain, and that when you recognize a pattern or make a connection, your brain rewards you with dopamine, amongst other brain chemicals, and that causes those centers to become even more active, so that you can recognize more patterns. So in the challenge overall is to find a way to disrupt your own automatic processing of your life, and processing of how to handle your life and what answers are available to you and what actions are available to you. And the creative process really begins by putting a different input in and sitting with it and seeing where that could go, and not giving up on it and acting on it. And there's sort of a chain reaction that's possible when you engage that way.
Yeah. And in the conversation, I think we were seeing some of those realizations of patterns from individual people in the conversation, whether saying, I recognize that I'm more creative after this, but not until you really teed it up to say, here's one way that you can trigger creativity. And then people were able to recognize the patterns. Or in a business setting, someone shared, like, I feel like I'm the person that's always seeing things differently, and maybe could provide a rub, for better or worse, for some of her colleagues and people that she interacted with. So the idea of disruption and creativity is kind of a neat connection. Again, I think that not all of us make. Sometimes we reserve creativity for just the art world, and we may not think about it in terms of survival and practicality. And I love what you shared too with the picture and the notice the difference. Notice the differences in the picture, because you really did illustrate that moment of the jolt to the brain of, oh, I found one and let me find another.
Yeah.
Do you think things like that, or maybe even, like crossword puzzles train our brains? Like, are there activities that you would recommend to get people to set a better foundation for more creative thoughts, more creative activities?
Yeah, I mean, the real answer is that almost anything can be a trigger. If it is something that is going to inspire a different response than you would normally. And sometimes the things that do that over time stop doing that. And so that's the sort of the constant challenge, is to find a way to re-engage with what you're doing and how you're thinking that inspires a different outcome. But yeah, almost anything. I mean, in fact, reading, and it's basically about doing things that you wouldn't normally do. If you could read something you wouldn't normally read, you could read something that's at the intersection of different topics of interest, and maybe combines professional topic of interest with a personal one. You could, I mean, it really, the possibilities are endless. It's like you just need to disrupt what you're doing. If you do something different in your pattern of your day, it's ripe and opens up possibilities. But the other thing is to have an intention for what it is that you want to get another possibility for. I mean, you can just sort of do these things and let them come to you, but you can sort of get the best of both worlds from your conscious and your subconscious by knowing what it is that you're driving at, what it is that you want. Even if it's not something totally defined, what you want in your life, and it doesn't have to be a specific kind of creative solution or a creative output, and know what that is and have that intention. And then there are some other tricks to engage your subconscious, and go back and see what comes up for you.
Yeah. Something else that occurred is how creativity may be, other words may be used to substitute for creativity, when it's actually a creative action that causes someone to find a new solution. We might just call that problem solving. Well, what does problem solving require? It requires a bit of creativity or thinking about things in a different way. So something that came out of your conversation, I think, is maybe creativity gets downplayed a little bit as this like optional thing, when it's something that we can see in everyday activities, and that on a high stakes level, creativity is required for survival. So I wonder what your thoughts are on that, or if you have any examples of like least expected places to find creativity, or aha moments of your relationship with creativity.
Yeah, I mean, I think you make a good point. I mean, creativity isn't something that, I mean, it's been commodified in some ways in the point in history that we exist in. and there's certain like creative outputs that are commodified and are have value and are sold that way. But creativity is just a capacity of our mind and body and mind body connection to adapt in ways that are productive and useful for us. So I find the most challenging applications of creativity isn't towards creative projects at all. It's often towards the full spectrum of life experiences in for relationships, for instance, and thinking about if patterns of engaging with people. We're deep in the patterns of how we speak to people and how we engage with them, and sometimes creativity is most needed for shaking things up or trying to reestablish something, or trying to communicate something important, trying to be heard in a different way, trying to have a different experience, trying to open up a different dimension of that relationship. Creativity is the way to do it. And, again, like under the hood of creativity is the idea that there has to be a different pattern, there has to be a different input, there has to be a different experience, so that a different part of your brain activates, takes notice of what's going on, and begins to respond to a different possibility for what it perceives as reality, and
Yeah.
hopefully a more expansive and enjoyable one.
Yeah. Just when you were saying that about language and relationships, you're reminding me of a friend of mine who very often he'll come up with a different way to ask you about your day.
Mm-hmm.
So we're so programmed to, how was your day? Fine, it was good.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we autopilot with how was your day and respond, you too, like, because we don't even listen
Yeah.
to what's going on. And he'll ask things like, if your day was a color, like what color would it be? Or, if you had to grade your day, like what grade is it? And it just forces you instantly to think about things differently. Like, what is fine on a graded scale? Like, is that a C? Well, probably I'm better than a C today. So yeah, that's really powerful. Just again, about language, or changing up that pattern. Instead of asking someone, how are you doing? Ask them something else that might get a different answer.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, I think I shared this in the chat that we had with everyone, but for me, the whole point of it all is to gather resources for ways to continue to reinvent myself in my own life, and to continue to grow and develop into who I want to be and who I feel is right for my life and who I'm becoming and what my life is becoming. And that's the birthright, is our basic capacity to continue to grow and not to be a static individual or to have a static identity. And that can be challenging. That's in life. And but to always to feel that you have access to continuing to grow and develop and to explore who you are and to redefine yourself and to recast your identity and to have access to that, to me, that's a very life-giving thing to be true.
Yeah, I agree. It's really beautiful. And I think a lot of people can feel it when they get stuck in a rut or stuck in this pattern that isn't serving them. So that invitation to reinvent or recreate or try something new. And your invitation to the group was to look for a place in your life where you can be more creative or try something different or do something that you've not done. Which is a huge, beautiful invitation. And it could be tiny, it could be big, and who knows what may open up.
Who knows? That's why I said creativity can be dangerous, because who knows what may come of it when you leave the patterns that you come to expect, and who knows what may come of your own thoughts and feelings when you begin to explore different truths than maybe the ones that you hold normally in the story that you tell about what's going on for you.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Matt. This was a beautiful conversation and really sparked even greater appreciation for creativity and what it means. So before we go, I would invite any final remarks from you, or how can people get in touch with you or their creativity? Just to invite any closing thoughts that you may want to share.
Yeah, I mean, my closing thought is just to, creativity doesn't just have to be about art or art making. And it's really about making art of yourself and expressing yourself. And the challenge is just to do something that you wouldn't otherwise do, to begin to put a tiny crack in the patterns that you recognize, and to become curious about what may come of it. And as far as getting in touch with me, I'm always happy to speak about this topic or about other topics. At Fathom, we work with leaders to create high performance organizations that go beyond what their history or their industry might say is possible. And that is a deeply creative experience, to be able to understand and express what is at the center of an organization and a community, and to bring that out into a world that rallies people to you and grows the performance of a business in many different dimensions. And so that's a journey that I love to go on with leaders, and would love to talk to anyone, and leaders especially, about possibilities that they see for a future for them and their organizations. And you can go to the Fathom website, fathom.net, and you can find me on LinkedIn as well. Just send me a message.
Perfect. And we'll link that in the description. So thanks again. And thank you all for watching. We hope to see you for a future conversation at the Connext Exchange every Thursday, 11:30 to 12:30. In the meantime, have an awesome day.
Bye.